Welcome to the producers. We are part of the Business 330 Section 1 Ethics Managerial Decision Making course, summer 2014 at NKU. The producers group includes Chris, Monica, Christian, and Rochelle. Some facts about the producers. This was the director's first movie. The Producers was the first movie for Mel Brooks. Brooks also worked on 2 real-life Broadway musical flops. The movie is banned in Germany. Mel Brooks wanted the original title of the movie to be Springtime for Hitler, but the studio didn't approve. The movie takes place in New York. Dishonesty is the cornerstone of the movie. The Producers was remade in 2001 as a Broadway musical, where it won the 2001 Tony Award for Best Musical. The Producers was remade again in 2005 as a musical film, starring Matthew Broderick, Nathan Lane, Uma Thurman, and many others. The Producers movie summary: a film set in the late 1960s that brings together a struggling theatrical producer and an accountant. Max, the theatrical producer, was once considered to be the top producer on Broadway. Now living in his office, wearing a cardboard belt and scrounging money from wealthy old ladies just to get by. Leo, his accountant, comes over to check on Max's books and tries to talk Max into producing a big hit to recoup all of his losses. Max believes it is way too late for that. Jokingly, Leo offers up that if Max were to produce a flop, he could legally keep all the money from the investors. Max and Leo come together and decide that they want to produce the next Broadway big flop. They conspire to pick the worst play, worst director, and worst actor to guarantee a giant flop. But in the end, it becomes a hit. Some of the cast includes Zara Mistel as Max Bialystok, the producer. Mel Brooks, the director, based Max on a real-life Broadway producer. Gene Wilder as Leo Bloom, the accountant, wrote half of his own monologue for the courtroom scene in the movie. Dick Shawn as LSD, Lorenzo St. Debuis, otherwise known as the worst actor. Kenneth Mars as Franz Liebekin, author of The Worst Playwright, Springtime for Hitler. And Lee Meredith as Eula, Max's assistant. Ethical theories related to the movie: honesty, loyalty, sexism.
Because of all of the fraud and whatnot involved in the movie, there are many ethical theories that apply to this movie. We picked the 3 most prominent ones that we felt were honesty, loyalty, and sexism. These stood out the most to us right off the bat when we discussed the movie. Ethical theory number 1, honesty. Right off the bat, from the opening scenes, Max and Leo were both dishonest. In the first scene, it's Leo and Max in Max's office. The accountant, came over to go over the books, and Max asked Leo to alter the numbers and to he had spent elsewhere in the numbers, which is fraud, clearly. Also, once Leo and Max had their scheme going, they sold multiple false ownerships of the production to multiple people. This again is dishonest and fraud. They both lied to multiple people in the process, including the directors, the cast members, and all of the owners of the production. A good resolution to honest dishonesty would be to come clean and confess to wrongs. Max and Leo should not have lied, and they need to own up to and be honest from here forward. The money should definitely be repaid to the debtors, and if they cannot repay the money, there must be another alternative way to right this wrong. They need to be accountable for their actions, such as letting everyone know that they messed up, and this will hopefully help them regain trust in the future. If not, then the people have good reason not to trust them, so that they can correct their wrongs.
Ethical theory number 2 is loyalty. Bialystok and Bloom had an obligation of their loyalty to their investors. When the investors trusted them with their money, they expected them to use it responsibly. They violated this trust by selling false shares of the show and attempting to create a flop. A resolution for loyalty would be to reimburse all of the investors, offer a sincere apology, and regain their trust by following through and acting different in the future. The third ethical theory involved in the movie is sexism. There is a significant amount of female exploitation in the producers. The way in which Bialystok collected money from his investors was by flirting, dating, and fooling around with little old ladies, and then taking their money. If the roles were reversed, Bialystok being a female and selling herself for money, this would be considered prostitution and no longer be viewed as a humoristic aspect of the plot. Another instance of sexism in the producers was the sexual harassment that Bula experienced as Max's new assistant. There was a language barrier which caused a major communication gap, and the only phrase that Max used with her was work. Bula would instantly turn on music, strip down into skimpy clothing, and dance around the office as the men enjoyed the entertainment. According to the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, it would be difficult to determine if Bula's situation is considered sexual harassment because Bialystok never straightforwardly asked for sexual favors or threatened her job based on her sex and actions. Based on a language barrier, the interpretation of what Bula considered her dancing to be, her job title, and contract legalities, there would have to be more in-depth analysis of whether or not her treatment in the workplace is considered to be sexual harassment. Nonetheless, hiring her as an assistant and having her do tasks which are not typical assistant duties is considered unethical, especially since he is taking advantage of a language barrier. The resolution of the issue of sexism in the movie is as follows. The investors are to be given their money back, and Mr. Bialystok needs to fully explain what their money was actually going towards and the truth behind his scheme. Unfortunately, you cannot undo treating somebody a certain way, but Bialystok has the opportunity to be honest. Bula is to be spoken to and explained that she is being wronged in her job title as an assistant. They are to pay her what she legally deserves and release her from the position.
Next are some ethical theories that are non-movie related. Cheating in sports, integrity, and humanity. Other ethical theory number 1, cheating in sports. Cheating is defined by the Merriam-Webster dictionary as to break a rule or a law, usually to gain an advantage at something. To take something from someone by lying or breaking a rule. Or to prevent someone from having something that he or she deserves or was expecting to get. Sports have been corrupted by scandals throughout history, from teams and coaches cheating and fixing matches to athletes taking the competition too far or using performance-enhancing drugs. To become a professional athlete takes drive, dedication, and a strong will to succeed. Some of the same traits that go into making a great athlete are the same traits that can make them same athletes take it too far. Athletes are taking performance-enhancing drugs at an all-time level and going to any extent to remain competitive in their respective sports. Despite the various sports rules and drug testing, athletes are finding new and better ways to get around the rules, allowing it to continue. The research regarding cheating in sports came from my prior knowledge, as well as the article titled Ethics in Sports, an article written by Jones and Bartlett Learning. Some occurrences of cheating in sports. How about Major League Baseball, where we have Pete Rose betting on baseball, Barry Bonds, Alex Rodriguez, and many others using steroids to gain an advantage and hit monster home runs. And then you have pitchers doctoring the baseball to throw off the hitter, from pine tar to sunscreen to whatever they can find to take the advantage over the hitter. In the NBA, you got teams losing on purpose in order to gain a better position in the upcoming draft, to grab the next big thing. You had referees fixing the games and betting on the games. In college, we got athletes getting paid to play. These athletes are getting a 4-year scholarship in most cases, yet are finding ways to get paid to play. You have colleges such as North Carolina making up classes so that their athletes can get an easy A and can continue playing. Then you have Reggie Bush, who is receiving money and gifts from agents while still in school at the University of Southern Cal. What about in the NFL? We have players taking performance-enhancing drugs. Then we have offensive linemen greasing up their arms so the other team couldn't grab a hold of them. Then you have Spygate with the New England Patriots, where they were recording other teams' practices and defensive coaches. Then you have the Indianapolis Colts adding crowd noise to the stadium to gain an advantage so that the other team could not hear the quarterback's play call. Other sports where we had cheating occurrences include Lance Armstrong and the doping scandal. You had Mike Tyson biting the ear of Evander Holyfield. Marion Jones taking performance-enhancing drugs at the Olympics. And how about old Rosie Ruiz, who used a motorized vehicle to help win the Boston Marathon? Following with the theme where Max and Leo are trying to produce the biggest flop to gain a financial advantage, a new age way of cheating in sports is now two flop to gain an advantage and get calls. Last year, ESPN's SportsCenter program put together 10 of their favorite flops. Take a look.
two guys go down. It's fake injuries.
Yeah, I hate this. Wow. It's not really hurt, but that's a tactic that defenses have used in the past.
Browns and Bengals Jerome Simpson tried to pull Scott Vegeta out of a pile, and watch Simpson's reaction when Vegeta gives him a shove. Soccer players take note.
El 76. Miguel Montaño. Uy, manotazo de Montaño. Por favor, Carrasco, pocas veces visto en el fútbol. Esto, pero tiene loco. Esto sí que de golzón. Espectacular. Lo que hizo Carrasco es de los chiflados. Es de todos los tres chiflados.
During a Philippine Basketball Association game, Nick Panisi and Will McDonald battle for position when tempers start to flare. McDonald grabs the rebound and throws it off Panisi's head. After pausing, the big man goes down with a great acting performance. But Chris Bosh proves his acting chops are just as good. NHL playoffs, Bruins Canadiens Game 3. Mike Ribeiro was hit late in the game by Mike Newell. Ribeiro stays on the ice in pain, appearing to be seriously injured. But moments later, Ribeiro was fine, even taunting the Boston bench. That wasn't the only thing done by the Habs that series.
Players have to leave their checks for how the coach is checking them. Turnover. Here's Murray. Scores! What a three-way get in overtime! It's the job that he was complaining about. Felt there should be a penalty. Look at him. All writhing in pain. You gotta suck it up in overtime, boys.
Integrity is a concept of consistency of actions, values, methods, measures, principles, expectations, and outcomes. Though similar to honesty, integrity deals with person's behavior and actions. Integrity is doing the right thing when nobody is watching. Integrity, the choice between what's convenient and what's right. Integrity, choosing your thoughts, words, and actions based on what's right rather than what's in it for you. An example of poor integrity in business is Kenneth Lay of Enron. He was mainly responsible for the scandal that led to the collapse of Enron. To this day, he is identified with corporate abuse and accounting fraud. The investigation of the scandal resulted in Congress passing the Sarbanes-Oxley Act to improve corporate accountability. Humanity, child labor laws in foreign countries. This affects 168 million children, largest in Asia and the Pacific, growing in sub-Saharan Africa. Children subject to work long hours, bad work environments, and unfair pay. International Labor Organization. Resolution related to cost and legalities. For the first ethical conflict resolution, cost-wise, in order to pay back all of the investors, not only will a lawyer and accountant need to be hired, but Leo and Bialystok will have to find a way to get back all of the money that they so carelessly spent. Max and Leo are legally at fault for committing fraud and need to face the repercussions. Ways to handle the fraud legally. Process, trial and verdict. Fines and damages. An example of this is Enron filing bankruptcy and were tried at the court level for their wrongdoing. Two precedents formulated, such as the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, followed with new regulations. The same process will need to be carried out involving the other two ethical issues. Since Max and Leo were the only two involved in their company, we can assume they have no one higher to go to for help or advice that can more likely than not. Max can never implemented an ethical code. Max never implemented an ethical code. Final recommendation. For Max and Leo, a final resolution for all their ethical issues is going to be a tough one to find. Since they have already spent all of their money, they probably don't have enough to reimburse their investors. The two of them can do their best to sell back or return everything that they use their unethically earned money to be able to repay everyone who is at a loss. Also, they should turn around all of the revenue from the show back to the investors. After financially attempting to make everything right, they need to start to gain back trust from people. Sincere apologies are in order. Leo and Max should immediately begin to change how they run their business after they get out of jail and build their integrity back.
Discussion questions. Number 1. We have all had jobs that we have absolutely hated, or bosses that were just so horrible. Just think about the movie, Horrible Bosses, for example, and the extreme the three main characters go to just to get rid of their horrible bosses. Now, in relation to the producers, we discover that Leo Bloom quits his accounting job because of his horrible and tyrant boss. What are some of your most hated jobs? And what were some of the most unethical things that you only imagine of doing to make the workplace better? Number 2. In the movie, Leo is the accountant and Max is the theatrical producer that has the ingenious plan to commit fraud and make millions. Knowing he cannot pull off a scam this large, he tries to coax Leo into joining his team by befriending him and snoozing him. Have you or someone you know ever been sucked into something unethical because they thought the friend had their best interest at heart? If so, what would you do in the future to prevent this from happening again? And number 3, because the women that Bialystok was using were little old ladies, does it make it okay for him to use them for money? If the women were young and attractive, would people be appalled at his actions instead of finding it humorous? Here's a list of our outside resources. This brings you to the end of the presentation by the producers. We hope you enjoyed it, and thank you.